Welcome back to Fast Market here on the TD Ameritrade Network. It's time for Cash Tag, so let's bring in our next guest, and that's going to be Andy Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. So Wayfair reports earnings later this week. Got an upgrade today, Andy, and this stock's just been on fire. I thought people weren't out there buying stuff anymore, and they were traveling and everything, but it seems to be like investors are piling back into these names. Did we see the trough, according to your data, for consumer purchases on furniture?
Yeah, I don't know about furniture as a whole, but I will say Wayfair definitely outmaneuvering, outcompeting, besting everyone that we can see in terms of competitors. You know, this is a stock, this is a company that you know, LikeFolio got a little bit famous for calling at the beginning of the very beginning of COVID as one of our COVID winners. You know, the stock moved up 900%, I think, in 2020. After the lockdowns began, because people wanted to renovate their house, they wanted new furniture, they wanted anything new in the spot that they were stuck in. And Wayfair was a big beneficiary of that. Got a huge growth out of that in terms of stock price, but then once things started to get back to normal, was unable to live up to those expectations. A pretty common story that we've seen over and over in stocks over the past 2 or 3 years. But you know, what we're seeing with Wayfair is that now we're starting to see kind of a resurgence of the brand. You know, the stock pulled back significantly. It's been on a big run now. But when we look at you know, web traffic to Wayfair over the past year, you can kind of see it bottom out during the holiday season last year, which was very, very concerning at that point. But since then, a really nice rally in the number of people just going to Wayfair websites, which is very highly correlated to revenue. So we think Wayfair is in a really good position here to put up really good numbers in terms of you know, its prior quarter revenue, but also to have an optimistic outlook as they look forward, which I think has proven to be one of the biggest factors in how a company reacts post earnings. And when we look at it from a competitive landscape against, you know, Lowe's or Home Depot, I'm not sure those are the perfect comparison points, but there really aren't great comparison points for Wayfair. You know, customers are really happy shopping at Wayfair compared to other home renovation destinations. So I think they get the benefit of the doubt in the consumer's mind. And so here we are with Wayfair, you know, kind of that repeat story. The stock's on a tear. Near or at 52-week highs, and going into earnings, we've got you know, a significantly bullish stance on this. One we really like as having real potential for a major upside move.
You know, nearly 70% consumer happiness in this past 90 days, Andy, has got to be impressive for any company, regardless of the industry that it's in. But, you know, my experience with Wayfair is that the things that you're purchasing come in a lot of pieces. So for consumers to still be happy with a lot of work still left to be done once it reaches your door, I think goes to show that the value in the products that people are buying are quite high. Looking at this visits comparison and sort of this resurgence that we're seeing with this brand, you know, anecdotally, my mom, I was just telling Tom before we came on this segment, recently brought up Wayfair to me. First time she'd ever brought that company up. Said it's her new addiction in terms of going on there and shopping. For perspective, Andy, she's also still recently discovering Candy Crush on the iPhone. So we're not talking about a technology wizard here. I think that's important, though, to get the demographic who maybe isn't what you think of as like e-commerce first, to be going to these type of websites, especially if they're more willing to maybe pay for assembly and you know, in-unit type of deliveries, which have to be quite high margin. Where do we see this relative to where we were at its peak? I'd imagine we have still seen a general drop-off, but is this comeback something to continue to monitor?
Yeah, I really think that it is. You know, we see this with a lot of companies that benefited greatly from COVID. You know, the market got ahead of itself, but the company itself, you know, continues to grind and execute in a really impressive way. And I think that influx that they got during COVID, during the pandemic, and the resulting drop-off, allow them a lot of data, a lot of experience with their customer to understand what those customers wanted, what they liked, what they didn't like. And now they're able to come back with a really quality experience that does allow them to get kind of into that fat part of the curve beyond just the early adopters and the innovators and into just the general shoppers, like you're talking about with your mother. And so I think that's a pretty common story, and one that Wayfair could say, hey, maybe that was an outlier event that got us all of those customers to begin with, but we learned from it so much that we actually think we're only in inning 1 or inning 2 of furniture shopping online, and we're the company to beat in this space. And I think they have a compelling case.
Here's a scenario that I'm coming up with, Andy, why we're seeing a resurgence maybe in home furnishing sales. One, new home sales really good, right? You need to furnish that new house that you bought from Toll Brothers. And then on the other side, existing home sales underperform because nobody wants to move and double their mortgage rate, right? Is that maybe lending some of the data, the positive data that you have, to this story, basically? Is that, hey, if I'm not moving because I can't buy a new house because there's no inventory and I don't want to double my interest rate payments on my mortgage, that, hey, I'm just going to buy some more furniture from Wayfair. And it's almost like you're on lockdown again like we were in the pandemic.
Yeah, really insightful commentary there, Tom. You've nailed it. You're stuck in the same kind of way. It's not a mandate from your governor, but you're stuck in the same kind of way because you're not going to give up that 2 7/8 mortgage that you have to go move somewhere else and pay 6, 7, or 8%. So you're stuck in this house, and you want to make it better. So I think the natural tendency is to upgrade what you have, and Wayfair has proven itself the place to go to do that.
Along those lines, last thought here, Andy. Has that kind of demand pull forward, maybe you were on the fence in the pandemic, like you said, you upgraded everything because you were at home. Has that kind of demand shift sort of worked its way out now, and it's time to even upgrade some of that stuff we got 2-3 years ago, and this company can actually return to growth because we need this stuff again?
Yeah, I think so. I think, the demand pull forward was great while it was happening, and it was a terrible hangover when it wasn't. Now kind of the hangover's over, and we're probably starting to get back to a somewhat of a real normal, not a new normal, but a real normal. And that's where companies like Wayfair that have learned so much from both experiences, the euphoria and the hangover, can really deliver on a normal kind of day-to-day economic reality.
All right, so you got positive data going into this report. Great data, as always, Andy. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio, breaking down the data for us here, Alex, on that one. I was sitting there thinking, how is their data positive when it seems like everybody's traveling and nobody's buying anything, electronics, home goods, anything like that? But it kind of makes sense. If you're on lockdown in the existing house that you have, you can't move because there's no inventory. Hey, I'll buy some new furniture to spruce up my house. And new home sales are the only thing selling, and you got to furnish those houses. So looked at